there's no way that this is not harmful, because I was like, chemicals is something that, I mean, as a chemist, it's like I've dealt with all kinds of chemicals. And if you think about it, a lot of people, I guess, think that there's extensive testing to decide all of these chemical ingredients are okay before you put them in food. Yeah, no, not really. So if you look at like drugs have these, $1 million, like $3-4 million clinical trials, right? And everybody thinks that when they do that, it's all great and happy and roses and, oh, it's fine, and they're releasing it. It's like, that's not true at all.
Liz, how did you find carnivore?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, because this is like extremely cathartic to people who actually get stared at like they're crazy and told to shut up on a regular basis, like all carnivores do, because um, I think that I'm actually going to have to start some kind of platform because everybody wants me to shut up at work. So, you know, this has been such a big change for me. Been such a life-changing event. It's like a cap on top of a lot of things that have happened to me. I guess I'll start uh, back when I was younger, just kind of to give people, because the kind of things I want to hear in these videos are like, well, what was your, were you really fat like since birth? Like, were you always have a weight problem, or like kind of what the deal was. So in my youth, like when I was about 18, well, actually, ever since I was a kid, I was extremely skinny. I could eat anything I wanted, anything at all. I could eat 10 cakes a day. I wouldn't gain a pound. I did modeling and did all kind of stuff when I was younger. I never had to worry about it. And that's almost a disadvantage, I think, in some ways, because the food is doing the damage to your body. You're poisoning your mitochondria. And I poisoned the crap out of it. So you don't know, because your body doesn't catch up. Like you can damage your body for so long. And at youth, it can take care of things. But when you get older, it starts to catch up with you and you get all of these autoimmune diseases, which I believe are related to diet. So anyway, later, I could eat anything I wanted. I typically did. I drank a lot. I didn't really have an addiction to alcohol, but I did drink like every weekend, just socially. It was just kind of the thing you did. Like you weren't, I know a lot of times I would look at it like you can't have fun unless you're drinking, and I was married to a German, so that's a thing, they drink a lot, typically as part of the culture. So, you know, I did a lot of damage to my body, but later, and I used to work out though. I got to a point where I would work out, I would weight lift. I went through the whole phase about the time when Atkins was going on, and I got really into fitness. But still, it's like before I was damaging my body before with the food, and now, I was continuing that or making it worse by avoiding fat. Fat is dangerous and fat is evil, which was a complete lie. So then I was in good shape, though, still. I'd never had a weight problem or anything. But when I was 33, I had my kids. And I had two kids I started having kids at 33, and then I had two children. And they were about 2 years apart. And after I had my daughter, so my son was around the time he was 3 and she was around 1.5, I had the worst back pain. Like it plagued me for just constantly all the time. I had to live with it. It was like, it wasn't debilitating where I couldn't do things, but it was just torture every day. It's like, I know my back is going to hurt. I can't do this. I can't do that. So no matter what I did still wasn't gaining weight. I was actually pretty thin after I had the kids, but it just was something that was torturing me, and it was so hard to live with. I went on a drug called tramadol. It's one of the, as far as the this type of drug, it's one of the lesser of a bunch of evils, but it's like an opioid instead of an opiate. There's differences in the chemical structure. People abuse it, but I don't really know how they do without going into seizures because of just the nature of the drug. But it doesn't make you like drunk like if you're taking hydrocodone, but it's very effective like an opiate. So I took that for, 10 years, because when the medical establishment puts you on medications, no matter what it says, even if the guidelines say you shouldn't take this for more than 2 weeks, you shouldn't take it more than a month, they put you on it forever. So no relief. I couldn't find any other relief. It did work for that, but again, you're doing damage, because this is a drug. So for years and years, I took that. And then as I got older, like I didn't really have tremendous like physical problems outside of I did have to get my gallbladder removed. It was necrotic because that was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. That was horrible because you just feel like something's horribly wrong in there, but you don't know what. So I did have to get that removed. And that might have been 2014. I had started to gain weight around that time, and I gained about 90 pounds. I was 90 pounds overweight, so which was horrifying to me because that's just not a thing in my life, and I automatically had blood pressure issues. I had not significant. I never was on blood pressure medication, but I had blood pressure issues. I had pain, joints, arthritis, and that was about. I'm 57 now, so that was about how many years ago? Eight-ish years ago, something like that. So everybody told me, well, you're getting old now, so it's time to feel like crap, and this is just the way it is. And so I kind of accepted that, and I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna eat my way into oblivion. And I just kept eating junk, and I was addicted to sugar, and it was awful, and my mood wasn't good. I didn't get into deep depression, but I didn't live really. I mean, I did, but I didn't. It was just not what I would like to call life. So after a while, I got tired of, I had never had that much weight on me, and I just got tired of being tired. So I, did the low carb thing again because I had done the Atkins thing. So I did the keto diet. I did the keto diet, and I like walked for miles and miles and miles. I mean, a day, like every day. Because when I do something, I'm like all in, like to the point of obsession. So I did keto and doing the vegetables and all that kind of stuff, and fibrous carbohydrates, doing the meat mainly and cheese and whatever. It was fairly clean, and I got rid of 70 pounds. So that was, and I can't remember how long it took me really, but I got most of the weight off. I weighed a little more than normal, but I was on the low end of the BMI scale, like of what people consider normal. So for me, for anybody else that looked at me, that would be like, why do you want to lose more weight? It was just to get back to the way I was when I was younger. The lighter I feel, the happier I am. Like the less, just fat on my body, I just feel better that way. So it's not really even aesthetic for the most part. But so I did all of that, and then I pretty much kept it all off, but I kind of crapped the bed with the keto, like, the keto snack. So I'm going to make stuff with almond flour and all this garbage. And that doesn't work. Anybody that's tried that knows it doesn't work. And then don't even get me started on the inflammation. So Thanksgiving 2 years ago, I had horrible like pain in my, I don't know, it's like in the front where your hip bones are, your hip bones stick out. And it kind of radiated to where I didn't know where it was coming from, because if you have indigestion, it can radiate and feel like a heart attack, or if you have pains anywhere in your body, it can radiate and you don't know what it is. So I was like, well, this is horrifying. I don't know if something's horribly wrong. So my sister took me to the emergency room on Thanksgiving. She went with me, and we were in there. And of course, the medical establishment, as usual, per the norm, was like, oh, they did a bunch of CT scans or whatever. And they're like, well, it might be a nerve. I'm like, thank you. Here's your $5,000, enjoy this. So it's like, it ticked me off so bad. I was so angry, and I'm still angry. Like when I start talking about all of this, I get madder and madder and madder. And the reason it made me mad is because I was a pharmaceutical chemist. I started out, the first degree that I got was in medical technology, though, even before that. So I worked in hospitals for about 10 years in clinical laboratories. I do all of the lab tests that diagnose people, right? So that was my first degree. And I did that for years. Then I went and got another degree in chemistry, and I went into pharmaceuticals, and I went into drugs, making drugs, different drugs, solid dose, liquid dose, pretty much the gambit, like all the different drugs. And the reason it made me angry is because for years I've secretly suspected, and I even knew food chemists, And I don't know if you've ever spoken to a food chemist, but when you find out the things they do to create these frankenfoods that should not exist in nature, um, it's criminal. Like, it reminds me of the tobacco industry. Everybody, my mother, and I'm rambling a little bit, but my mother, when she was in the hospital with me, was smoking cool cigarettes in the labor and delivery room. I mean, this was normal back then, years ago. Everybody said, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then the tobacco industry was secretly funding whatever research they needed to tell everybody that it was okay. It was not. And you're harming people. Well, the same thing's going on in the food industry. I did not work in food specifically. I worked in nutraceuticals. When in about 2009, the Food and Drug Administration, I think it was 2009, changed how nutraceuticals were done. So they used to do them under the food regs, which is a joke. I mean, as an auditor and someone in the regulated industry, food was a joke. Like, when they changed those regs, I had a company contact. I went to this other company that was nutraceuticals, and they were desperate because they had no idea what to do. They were just like, it's so night and day, because the nutraceuticals look more like the drug regs, which are very complex and very hard to comply with. Like, it's a lot, right? The food regs were like, whatever kind of thing. I mean, there's regulations. Mostly they're trying to keep things clean, but it was just, very interesting, So I always was thinking, it's like, God, I've seen those food regs. It's like, there's no way. And you start reading the additional chemicals on the packets, and it's like, there's no way that this is not harmful, because I was like, chemicals is something that, I mean, as a chemist, it's like I've dealt with all kinds of chemicals. And if you think about it, a lot of people, I guess, think that there's extensive testing to decide all of these chemical ingredients are okay before you put them in food. Yeah, no, not really. So if you look at, like, drugs have these, $1 million, like $3-4 million clinical trials, right? And everybody thinks that when they do that, it's all great and happy and roses, and oh, it's fine, and they're releasing it. It's like, that's not true at all. It used to be more true years ago, but now it seems like the public is guinea pigs. It's just crazy. So I had suspected, to kind of come back around, I had suspected that there's no way. I was looking at these packages, everything in the middle of the grocery store, going, good Lord, because I know what this stuff is. And I'm like, there's no way that's not doing damage. But I couldn't prove it. I don't have a laboratory. I can't start any kind of, official thing, or whatever. So, to prove any of this, but I always suspected it. So when I got out of the hospital that Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and it's almost my 2-year anniversary, I was so angry. I mean, I was livid. And I'm like, I want to know why. Because every time I went to the doctor, it's like, why? Why? Why is this happening? Do not tell me I'm getting old, because I'm sorry, the human body is not meant to, like, fizzle out at, what, 50 something? What is that? Like, so I was angry, angry, angry. And I happened to see, and I'm not sure who was first. It might have been Ken Barrett. It might have been Sean Baker or someone. And then they're talking about carnivore. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why didn't I think of this 30 years ago? You know what I mean? So it just made perfect sense. As a scientist, I'm like, well, yeah, and then all the myths started to break down of, well, I guess, vegetables and none of that stuff's bioavailable anyway. I'm not like ragging on every vegetable. Every vegetable's not, although I do agree with Chafee, is that they are trying to kill you, And if you look at vegetables, because are we saying like that vegetables are good just because they're there and we've been eating them forever? And if you actually look at that argument, it's like, well, actually, the vegetables that were eaten a long time ago are nothing like the genetically engineered stuff that we're eating today. They're engineered to be enormous and full of, like, sweetness, right? That's not natural. That's not a thing. It's kind of like fat, salt, and refined carbohydrates being globbed together is a recipe for danger. You know what I mean? It's like something you don't see in nature. You don't ever see that in nature. So I don't know. I just, like, everything just clicked all of a sudden. I started doing that. So I went ruminant meat like Michaela Peterson does, because I was doing it for all this pain, right? The pain that I had in my hips was so bad. I was just like, what is it? It turned out, allegedly, when I went to orthopedic doctor, he said, oh, it's your IT band. Like, what is it? I don't even, what is that? I said, it sounds like my internet's bad or something. Like, what is an IT band? It's actually like a tendon or something that goes from your hip, the front hip bone to your knee. And a lot of times you'll have problems in your knee. So, um, I was like, whatever. But he said, that's probably it, because that's what everybody's goes wrong. And so it must have been inflammation, is all I could figure out, because in 3 days of eating nothing but meat and water, I had no more pain at all. Not just that. And that was like go to the hospital on Thanksgiving kind of pain, like you're dying. I had no more back pain. So if you think I was angry before, you should have seen me after the back pain went away, because that's 20 years of suffering. My daughter is going to be 20 years old in January. I have suffered from that since the beginning. And it was even when I was going through all that and I was taking the medication, I was looking for answers. I did meet a doctor whose wife, he was researching that. He was looking into it, and I was one of his patients. And he was trying to figure out, well, what is this? Where does it come from? And his wife had had kids, and he thought it was linked to hormones, which it probably is, because if you're not eating fat, you're going to be sick as a woman, because that's what you make your hormones out of. I mean, or as a man too, but in particular, women need fat to make their hormones. So his wife had kids, she had twins, and she had like severe carpal tunnel that she never used a computer. She was like a stay-at-home mom, and there was no reason for it, but it was very severe, and she like almost couldn't grip things, and it was really bad. So he was interested in finding out why, and he was research. That's the only person I ever saw trying to research the actual cause of a disease to get rid of it. So, even then, it's like I did find one person looking for answers, but no one else looked for answers at all. None. I mean, so I was pretty mad about that. So, but it was miraculous. It was almost like, and I'm sitting there going, well, this has got to kill me, because the brainwashing, even if you are, your background is science and you work in the industry and you know what it's like and you know how it operates, you still, like, even to this day, sometimes I go, oh my God, I'm probably going to have I'm going to have a blockage. And it's like you get that feeling in the back of your head, and that it's like Pavlov's dog or something. You're about to get a shock or whatever. So it's like, I don't know. It's just crazy. But everything is gone. I also, when I lost the weight and I actually started eating keto, even before that, I had the high blood pressure was going on. That got rid of that. I also was, now one of the things that I realized early on, because of the soil, is that I was most likely deficient in iodine. So I started taking nascent iodine about 2013, which actually helped my health tremendously. Because if you think about it, like most of the things carnivore like takes care of pretty much, but if the cows don't have access, if the soil's not treated properly, and whatever the cow is eating, like that, you know what I mean? It's like it's harder to get iodine. If you live in some of the, like where you live, probably you can get a lot of iodine that's natural, and it's just commonplace, but iodine's a little harder to come by in different areas of the world. So I always take the nascent iodine supplement, because every cell in your body has to have it. So that's one of the things I did to improve my health. But and my thyroid was messed up, and my doctor was like, well, I want you to go on this synthetic, thyroid medicine. I was like, no. And she's like, well, you have to, because you're TSH and blah, blah, blah. And I know I used to do these labs on people. So I'm like, I know. I said, I think I need more iodine. She goes, no, you don't. It's like, and she treated me like I was going to drink poison. And I said, you do know that every cell in the body requires iodine, and this is even the best like form of iodine. It's not like Lugol's where you have byproducts that break down. Like there's different kinds of iodines, or iodine. But she's like, well, no, that's dangerous. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean that's dangerous? And that woman hated me. She hated me. So what I did is, like, I had been on the iodine. I said, well, let's just get the labs done, because it's been about 3 months. And I came back with the labs. I'm like, oh, looky, that's normal. And that for your range, is that normal? It's like, and she was like, oh. But she just was disgusted. She actually got rid of me as a patient, because I was right too many times. And I told her, she goes, well, you need to take blood pressure medicine. I said, no, I said, I'm overweight, really bad. I said, and that makes you sick. I said, that's part of it, like the stress on your body. And plus, I've been eating crap. And I said, but if I fix that, it should fix the blood pressure. And it did. And she was mad about that, you know. And then, oh, God forbid, I have a higher cholesterol value. And she's like, well, you'd be on a statin. And I was like, no. I said, I was part of the clinic. I was part of the whole, pieces of the clinical trial stuff for statins and all this, a lot of other drugs. And I'm like, I knew what the deal was with that. I'm like, no, I'm not taking that. Like, there's no way. Because a lot of my career in pharmaceuticals was doing clinical trial. So clinical trial materials, which is, you really need to be about to drop dead if you need to go to a clinical trial. That's all I'm going to say about that. But that's just my opinion. But, so, you know, it's this long road of just nobody at all cares whether or not they fix the problem. They're only treating symptoms. That is it. And I can't think of one situation where you're trying to fix the problem, like just in traditional medicine. And the way that they determine what drugs that they're actually going to market it's very, very, very corrupt is all I can say. I can't, I won't go into details, but it's just like, it's not a bunch of scientists sitting in a lab going, today we're going to try to cure this disease or that disease. These are corporations. These are not, it's not, charity organizations. And I don't know. It's like so many of these autoimmune diseases are from the food. I don't even want to call it food because it's not even food. It's definitely not food. That is not stuff you should put in your mouth. It's something that, I don't know if you see a child wanting to go for a can of gasoline, it's like you're going to stop them. It's like I see people eating this stuff, and even my own kids, it's like they kind of laugh because I go on a tangent because I just get so angry, and it just makes me mad because people are suffering. They're suffering from very horrible, and the diabetes, on just the diabetes alone, when you see people go blind and lose limbs, and they just don't know any better. They don't know what they're eating is causing all these problems. You know what I mean? Or they don't believe it. And people have the food and the eating is tied so closely to our culture. And like, anything you do, let's go eat. Everybody's eating like it's an event, And so it's hard because people are like, oh yeah, she's not going to eat anything, and they get upset with you. And then they think you're being uppity or something and looking down on them. And it's like, no, I'm just not eating poison. And that's what it is. So I think what you're doing on this channel is extremely important because first of all, it's like, if we didn't have here to speak, like, where would you speak? Because if you're like, and I think a lot of us are the same way as carnivores, when we go out, we hear these people with these, these medical conditions, and we're like, what would fix that? And then you're just like on a soapbox or whatever. But so many people don't understand behind the veil. They don't understand, that everything's not what it appears. I think it's
Right.
really scary. So,
Yeah. I think just on you're talking about the people losing their eyesight and losing their limbs
mhm.
and that kind of thing from diabetes. And the really, really sad thing about this is to the pharmaceutical companies and the medical industry, it's just like they're a gold mine.
Yep. I think statins were the most profitable class of drugs I think ever invented. That's before Ozempic, though. So, I think maybe that might take its place. The Wegovy and the GLP agonists, I guess. That I can't even put into words how horrifying that is. And I believe, I can't say definitively, I believe they factored in their class action lawsuits in the beginning because they don't really care how horrifying the results are of this because they'll have made their money. In the end, they'll have made their money, and it's a business. You know what I mean? But it's no different. And I guess that's what, if people can just understand. I think I'm a big history person too. Like I took when I'm a professional student, like historically, I like to understand and learn things. So when I was like younger and I was going to college, I took every history class that was offered. because I love it so much. And I had they had a great history teacher at the place that I went. And it's just funny how people just don't understand how the same thing just keeps happening over and over again, but it's just different circumstances. You know what I mean? Before it was tobacco and the tobacco industry, and I wish that it, and the information is not out there for people to see. It is better now. It's like now you have the internet and you don't have to go to the library and things like that, but you can get a hold of all kinds of different information. Kind of like if you find out where everything comes from, if you just ask why, why is vegetable oil a thing? Why did that come in the bin? You start looking at it and you look at it's like industrial lubricants and byproducts and stuff. If you ever look into the weirdest stuff, like if you look into where toothpaste came from, it's everything. It's like in everywhere you look, it's really hard sometimes, because what I worry about is that we're in the infancy kind of this, revelation about food and what it's really doing to people. And I feel like right now, if I had to sum up what I think the community is going through, it's like right now we're a gnat, but we're starting to be a fly, and then we're going to be a bird. And it's like, at some point we're going to get swatted, because you're talking about more money than God. I mean, if you look at who owns the pharmaceutical industries and the food industries, this is eventually, I would think, going to hit their bottom line. Now, you do have the addiction aspect of it, because everyone's addicted to all of these poisons, right? So there's a huge group of people that are never gonna get away from it, unfortunately, because they're just hopelessly addicted. I remember when I used to eat sugar. I used to eat I don't know if have you ever seen cream horns? This it's an abysmal thing. It shouldn't exist. It's this pastry, like a flaky pastry, and it's just crammed full of Crisco and sugar, like it's like an icing thing, and it's made out of Crisco and sugar, and it's whipped, and it's horrible. But I mean, I was seriously, when I got really overweight, I was seriously addicted to the cream horns, And I think about drinking soda, and all the stuff that I used to drink. Oh, and another thing, I just forgot about it. There's so many things carnivore has fixed. It's like sometimes I forget. Right before I actually went carnivore, I started getting horrible indigestion, and it feels like you're having a heart attack. I don't know if you ever had that, Dave, but it feels like if you have it really bad for the first time, it feels like you're having not that I know what a heart attack feels like, but it feels like, oh my God, it's got to be a heart attack, because it just hurts. And it's not always like you feel acid bubbling up. Sometimes it's just pain that kind of radiates, right? But it was acid reflux. So they put me on one of the Ozempic type drugs, which this is a real good idea, because let's train your body not to produce acid in your stomach, because that sounds good, and let's just put you on it forever, even though it says you can't take it more than a month. I've got people I work with who's been taking that for 10 years. What is that doing? It's kind of like the SSRIs, that the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They don't know what they're doing to your brain chemicals. It's like, oh, well, we're just going to retrain your brain chemicals, and then someday you'll just won't be able to take it. I don't know. But that worked a little bit when they did it, and I went on it. And it was before the carnivore. But then I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at how dangerous these are, and I'm just like, and how you're not supposed to take it for long. And I'm like, oh, God. So luckily, carnivore completely eradicated it. I do not have any of that. And that was just like one of the other things. Well, you're getting old, you gotta have, acid reflux all the time, or you gotta have heartburn all the time, and then you can't move your legs. Because my joints, that's just arthritis. You just gotta get used to it. This is the way life is. I have no arthritis. I have more stamina in some cases than my kids. So, at this age. And I feel like I have the same amount of energy as I did when I was 18. Another thing that's also a real trippy thing is, and this still floors me. And when I tell people, they're like, this sounds weird. I think when your body starts working like it's supposed to, it really surprises you, because if you're eating the standard American diet, it has never worked like it was supposed to. I used to have trouble. I'd go to sleep. I went through bouts of insomnia, but I used to have trouble kind of going to sleep initially, here and there, and then I'd toss and turn and I'd wake up, and it was kind of annoying. And that was regular, right? So A lot of times I might be up till like 2 or something. I'd be tired the next day at work. So when I went carnivore though, and it was fast, it was within a week, my body does this thing where it shuts off like a robot. It gets some kind of transmission. About 10:30, it's like time to go to bed. And I'm like, "Rrr." And if I'm sitting in this chair, I will pass out in this chair. It's like you're going down. I don't care if you're over there or if you're over here, you are going down. And I mean, it's like a normal thing. And I eat, I mean, I have tons of energy through the day. I mean, I'm just like going 90 miles an hour all day long. I don't get tired, don't get fatigued, don't get nothing. But then when it's time to go to bed, you're out, you go to bed. I sleep like a rock all night and I wake up automatically without an alarm clock at 5 a.m. It never fails. Unless I push through and I stay up like till 2 or something like that. If I'm gaming or something, it's like, and I do something stupid, then I'll sleep a little bit later. But I don't have to use an alarm clock anymore to get up. That is the weirdest thing. And I would love to know if any other carnivores have experienced that, because that's just trippy. But I would imagine it's kind of like if you eat meat and you don't eat garbage, the ghrelin, you get the ghrelin response and you're full. Like, that you're full. Your body tells you you're full. It tells you to stop eating. So that to me is amazing, that your body, it's like, oh, it's supposed to work that way. You're not supposed to have to struggle to sleep all the time. You're supposed to be put to sleep. Your body's supposed to tell you it's time to go to bed. You know what I mean? So that's amazing. So, and the energy levels are crazy. I mean, just tons of energy. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I've got a few questions related to the industry you've come from, but just before I get to that, how are you eating day to day?
right now I didn't hit my mark when I lost the initial bunch of weight that I started keto on, and then like I gained a little back, and then when I went carnivore, it fell off. But one thing I did is abused heavy cream. And I think because it has casomorphins in it, it causes you to crave it. So I was dumping. I mean, I had too much heavy cream in my coffee, because I do drink coffee. I'm a cheater, pumpkin eater when it comes to like carnivore, I guess. I haven't gotten rid of that yet. But slowly I'm trying to eradicate things that I feel, but it doesn't bother me either. It doesn't seem to bother me, but I'm sure that if I got rid of it, it would be a good thing. I'm sure. But I was drinking like heavy cream and stuff, and I realized that I'm like I'm addicted to this because I look too forward to this heavy cream. So I got rid of it in my coffee, and I put the butter in my coffee now. So I just put, and I was putting butter in it before, but I put butter in my coffee, and I'll have coffee like twice a day, and then I'll eat once at night. But you're getting some nutrition because the butter, like the butyric acid and the butter and things like that, is very good for you. So I do have a little, it's not like fasting. I guess you kind of call it a coffee fast or something. And occasionally I'll put very, very purified MCT oil in my coffee, but it is the C8 fraction. It is not the C10 and the other stuff. And it's very, very clean. It doesn't, doesn't have anything. It's basically medium chain triglycerides. So I'm not 100%. I need to do some more research on that. It seems to be great. What it does is it jacks my ketones up to enormous levels. If I have 1 tablespoon of MCT oil in my coffee 2 times a day, my ketones are over 5, or right around 5, which actually, when you're looking at that, some people said, oh, it's over 5. That's dangerous. Like, no, because the precision of these, the little blood ketone monitors are not, they're not that precise. So if 5 is like the level it goes up to for you to be in like good, like what they call GKI ketosis. I don't know if that's a Keto Mojo, which is a brand. I don't know if it's their thing or if it's but basically it looks at your glucose. So if I do that, what I see is my glucose will go down to like 60 something and my ketones jack up to about 5, which you feel like a superhuman when you get to that level. I mean, that is when you feel your best and you have just a tremendous clarity. And then I notice if I just do the butter, it's like, it's still good readings. I've still got a ketone level of about 3.5. And then my glucose is around, and depending on how much activity I'm doing, it's around 75 or something like that. So I'm just experimenting on myself because, again, this is what I do. But I do notice that I like that. So I'm getting food. I'm getting nutrition. I'm getting the MCT, and I'm getting the butter and the coffee like twice a day. I feel kind of odd eating during the day because I feel like I don't think people understand what the word hungry means. Everybody talks about I'm hungry, and I'm like, are you really? Because I had to question. So anytime I feel like I'm hungry, I question myself, like, am I hungry or do I want to put something in my mouth? Because I really look forward to ribeyes because that's my favorite food. And I eat every night. I usually eat a ribeye, but I did get some fillets because you can get the whole tenderloin and chop it up. But I feel like a lot of times, to be honest, it's like because I really want to eat it because the experience of eating it, right? It's not, I'm not like hungry, because I still have a little bit of body fat. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, that's our lunch. I always say, I used to slap myself on the butt and everybody's like, are you going to eat lunch? And I'm like, no, I packed my lunch already. It's like, if you have extra weight, you packed your lunch. That's what it's for. You know what I mean? It's like you're supposed to eat that first. Your body's supposed to eat that first. So I don't, I think I feel the best eating once a day because a lot of times, like we have lunch at work, we'll get free paid for lunch. Like if we meet our numbers or whatever, the company buys lunch, and they're always going somewhere like pizza and stuff like that. And it's like, and I don't know, I probably wouldn't touch anything from a restaurant anyway because I feel like it's marinated in seed oils or something or who knows what. So, but there sometimes I feel like, oh, I should just like pull the meat off and eat the meat, and it's like, no, what would I do? I don't you just want to kind of be social. You want to join in. You kind of feel left out. So now I BYOR. I just bring my own ribeye. So when it's like time to eat or whatever, and everybody thinks it's kind of funny that I'm just not eating the stuff or whatever. They think I'm crazy. But so I'll typically eat. Now yesterday I really craved eggs. I really wanted eggs, and I was like, eggs don't bother me at all. But I notice it it feels I feel a little bloaty and a little not bad. Like it's not really even that noticeable, but I feel like I don't know. It's just like I love it though. I get eggs delivered from a farm. I get like 15 flats and we eat a lot of eggs here. And they're delivered, they're farm fresh eggs and everything. And I want to do that with everything I eat. The one problem I'm running into though is that beef for some, not ground beef. Ground beef is fine if it's grass fed. Um, but grass fed steak, I've tried it from 3 different places. It tastes gamey to me. I don't know if you've had like wild meat and stuff like that, but it tastes a little bit gamey to me. And I'm like, God, I know that's because the crap they're feeding those cows. When I go to Sam's and I get prime and it's from China or wherever the heck it's from, I don't even know. I know it's the crap they're feeding them. So it's like I think it makes them eat sweet or something, or I don't know, but it's a big difference in taste. And one of my favorite steaks to get is the prime version. It's a lot more expensive, but it's got more marbling in it. And I think, oh God, that's like Wagyu or something where they're feeding they're making them bigger or something, which is not healthy. And I keep hearing Chafee in the back of my head going, you're gonna really want to drink, eat those grass-fed steaks and da, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And I know it's not, comparatively, but I'm kind of on a mission to get as pure of a food source as possible if I can. But the heavy cream, getting rid of the heavy cream over a period of 2 weeks, I lost 11 more pounds. All I did was get rid of. So anybody, if you're having trouble getting off the last little bit of stubborn weight and you're drinking heavy cream, it is not your friend. Probably it is not your friend at all. And I'll eat cheese. Like I have Danish Havarti. I'll eat some of it. It has no carbs in it at all. I'll eat some of that periodically. It's like really good quality cheese. I won't eat. I try to stay away from the crap in supermarkets or whatever, but or what I mean, the cheddars and the Walmart stuff or whatever. But the Danish Havarti is pretty good, so I'll have that kind of for differences. But I don't really. Occasionally, I'll have hamburgers. I'll do the eggs sometimes, but it's mainly eggs, butter, a lot of butter. I eat a lot of butter. Not a lot. I mean, but I do have regular amounts of butter. So, and I think that's really important. The fat is important. So fattier cuts of meat are important. And I did get the tenderloins. I found it was more economical to buy a huge tenderloin at Sam's and just cut it up, into the fillets. That seems to work pretty good. And I've got a freezer full of meat. But it's very liberating not to have to worry about dinner. I have to listen to people, and it just drives me crazy. Like my daughter-in-law and my son, every day it's like, what are you having for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? What are you gonna eat? What do you want? No, what do you want? I'm like, God, would you people just shove something in your mouth and get it? I'm like, you're driving me nuts, and they're messing up the kitchen and stuff. It's like, I've got one pan. That's it. I have my pan. I clean my pan. I'm done. So I don't know. I wish they would all eat this way.
So what is their feeling about the way you're eating?
They make fun of me a lot. I mean, I think they see the results for themselves, because all the weight's gone. I have a lot more energy than they do sometimes. And it not all the time, because they're 20 and 22, but um it's obvious that it's working, but you still got the brainwashing strong with those two. It's like, well, it can't be healthy. I'm like, why exactly? Why can't it be healthy? Why is it not healthy? What is it you can't get from meat? Oh, nothing. Okay. And I don't blame people. I understand like wanting to eat fruit. I mean, it's super, super like all plants are clones, I guess. Like Barry was talking about that. And I'm not an agricultural specialist or anything, but he's talking about now all plants are clones, basically. And I know they engineer them to be huge and sweet and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's like candy. Like, why wouldn't you want to eat fruit? But again, it goes back to something that's addictive, because if I ate a piece of fruit, I would crave that same thing. I would crave more things. It would start a craving cycle, because carbohydrates are not essential at all. They never were, they never have been, and they never will be, because your body generates what it needs. So, and I guess that's why a lot of times I see people tiptoeing around a lot of these facts that are just biological facts. You know what I mean? It's like because of the norms. You know what I mean? It's like it's the norms. It's our culture. It's we've been eating crap forever. And you go back and you look. One of the most startling things and again, like, I don't want to make this sound like I'm going after anybody that weighs more, or that's not my point. It's that obesity is a health issue. It's a problem. It means you're sick. If you're obese, you're sick. Not if you're, I don't know, there's people are different sizes, but if you're an unhealthy weight, you're sick. And one of the things that really floored me, and I wish I could find the footage of this, and you might have seen it, is I think it was the Apollo launch in the 70s. They panned the crowd. Everyone in that crowd looked like stick people. They were so thin. Everyone was thin. And then they did it like 20 years later. It was the exact opposite. You couldn't find any thin people in the crowd. Everyone was obese. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, and that's like, to me, that is, how are you going to explain that away exactly? Like the people who think, that there's not a problem in the food supply, so it's really bad. It's just really bad. And I think it makes perfect customers. The food supply being poisoned slowly poisons everybody. They have to come up with drugs to keep sustaining life, but I mean, it's just damage, 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 and just mitigate the symptoms. So, I mean, it's depressing. I was really glad to see, and
Mm.
not getting political or anything, but I did see there are people now in the political arena talking about it, and I'm like, thank God somebody's actually talking about it. I mean, I'm sure they won't go all the way and really say everything, because nobody ever does. It's in the public eye, but at least the conversation's happening. You know what I mean? Because if you look at, like, I don't know, did you know that McDonald's salt has like other things in it? I'm like, it's salt, for God's sake. She had to poison the salt. It's a packet of salt. You put three or four more chemicals in the salt. I mean, that's pretty bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
How cheap is salt?
Yeah.
Like,
It's pretty bad. Um,
yeah.
so do you think that, you know, the food industry basically makes us sick, and then Big
Yes.
Pharma comes along and, well, we've got the solution for you. Do
Yes.
you think that's all happened just kind of
I
accidentally, and then
I think,
it's like
yeah.
everyone's kind of, oh, well, this kind of works for us. Let's just not say anything.
I think it's now it's more malicious, because they know what it's doing. because they engineered all this stuff. They're the ones who came up. I mean, the food industry, they came up with the bliss point, right? The point, the term, I think it is, they use it like when they get something where you can't say no to. And the science is clear, and it always has been. If you look back hundreds of years ago, for diabetes, the treatment was to go to basically ketogenic type of diet, eat mostly meat, and it cured people with the diabetes. And so it's always been around. It did work. And why does metformin exist if that's the case? I mean, because these are facts. These are not, they're facts. I mean, I guess if we say, well, everybody's lost through they've lost all the history. They don't understand what happened in the past. And I'm sorry, people are not, the people in places, the people who are over all this stuff, they know that. They know that that was the case. They know that it used to be a treatment for epilepsy. They know a lot of this kind of thing. Nutrition was a treatment for a lot of things. They would rather sell metformin. And one of the funniest things I've heard is Dr. Berry talking about, we don't have a metformin deficiency, which is funny. It's like, you got a metformin deficiency, you need more metformin, which is funny. But I mean, it's not really, but it is kind of funny. But it's just really sad. So I don't think it's not a bunch of, really old dudes going, whoa, and they're sitting there with their Dobermans, in a circle and stuff and planning worldwide destruction. It's not like that. I think they just did whatever they wanted. They just, I don't, do you remember, you might remember this back in the, I don't know, it was 80s or 90s or whenever it was, but there's something called Olestra. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. Alestra.
Olestra, I think it was, and that was
Olestra.
like
No.
that was an actual brand name for a chemical. It actually wasn't, and I don't remember. I can't remember. I should have looked because it's really funny, but I can't remember which chemical it was off the top of my head, or oil product, lubricant, something or another that they were putting in chips. It actually went straight through you. I mean, it just literally like, because they were like, "What? Yay! That won't make you gain weight and all this kind of stuff." And it was so bad they actually had, if memory serves, it had warnings for anal seepage. Like, I'm like, we've gone too far. It's like, we've just gone too far. If you will put up with something called anal seepage, I mean, I don't mean to be gross, but that actually was written on the actual package, then wow. It's like, I don't know what to say, but it's just been, they just did whatever. It's like, and you can't tell me there's no clinical trials for crap you put in food. They don't do that. That's just drugs. So, one of the things I want to do is start doing deep dives into, because I'm not a professional in the food industry. Like I said, I got involved when it was, I know it's crap, and I know I got involved when it was actually, the, it went to the nutritional regs, like, because they were just running amok. I mean, you have a lot of times, for an example, like in nutraceuticals, they have herbs and things that they put in a lot of these tinctures and stuff like that. Well, they get the herbs a lot of times from third world countries who have like monsoons and stuff. And so they were buying herbs from like places that had monsoons, and you had dead, rotted cows that were in 3 foot of water in this herb field, and they would get the herbs, and then they would have all kinds of bacteria and contamination and just horrifying conditions and stuff. So the nutraceutical regs kind of made sure that you can't have all the crap that was going on, because it was just, they weren't rigorous enough. Because one thing I'll say about regulations is that what I do for a living is I am over the compliance of a facility to make sure that whatever medical device and, or in the past, like pharmaceuticals, are made properly. It's what's called GMPs, good manufacturing practices. And so when it comes to the agents from the Food and Drug Administration who come and look at facilities, and they look at food facilities too, it's just their regs are awful. Like, they're not rigorous enough. But everything else for drugs and medical devices, it's really strict, because you could mix stuff up, you could kill people, and so you have to do things in a proper, organized manner, and there's regulations for how you do it in industry standards. But for food, it's just always been really lax. But when it comes to regulations or what they approve, so now that's on the ground when you go into a facility and you're going to make sure they're doing things properly and they're not hurting anybody. when you go to the clinical trial arena of all of that stuff, or the decisions of what drugs to pick and the high like governing regulations and stuff that they do, it's extremely corrupt. Like why they want to pick a drug to approve versus another drug, it's very corrupt up there. Not the people on the ground, the agents on the ground who are, looking to make sure that you're not making drugs in a dirty room and stuff like that. But it's like one of the things that I experienced. I used to work for one of the companies I worked for is the Red Cross. And when the AIDS epidemic happened, there was no antigen test to test for the antigen of the virus. We only had antibody tests. So what that meant is a lot of people were getting AIDS from the blood supply, because it takes time to develop an antibody if you can't detect antibodies. So I was a part of the nationwide efforts to test two different methodologies. It was two different types of tests, but it tested for the same thing. And then the FDA, they basically had a showdown, both companies, and see who got the bid kind of thing. And this one company, I believe it was, it's been years ago, but I think it was Ortho got the bid for that. And that's what we tested the blood supply with from that point on. And FDA was the arbiter for that. They looked at the evidence and decided what was best. The problem is, if you look at the people, and not in this case, really, I'm not using this, but this is an example of like, you have people on a board like up high that decide what's going to be used, what's not going to be used. So with drugs, those people are most of the time, I'd say most of the time, they actually are, they have vested interest in companies that they pick. So it's not, science is not very sciencey anymore. You know what I mean? It's not, it seems like, what you would do is have the evidence speak for itself. You would run clinical trials, you would run the test, you would run them absolutely. And it would tell you once and for all, what is a better, which one to pick. And that would be it, but that's not the way the world works, unfortunately. And one of the things, that's why when I look at, as a scientist, when I look at nutrition, oh my God, because I took about, 2 years of biochemistry. So biochemistry is one thing. You learn about biochemistry and how the body works, and all of that's established, which should tell you carbohydrates are not essential, but I digress. But when you actually look at nutrition, they're just lying. They're just making stuff up. I'm sorry, but they're just making things up. And then your evidence for eating meat is, hey, what'd you eat last year? Okay. That's not scientific in any way, shape, or form. If you wanted to watch somebody eat, not that you do this, but I'm saying you'd lock them up in a room, you would feed them what you wanted them to eat, you would record it, and you track their labs and everything, but they would never have access to anything but what you give them. You know what I mean? That's how, and you could tell what it's doing to the body. Another thing drives me nuts, and I know I'm ranting, but I have to do it somewhere, right? Is that when you people who say, they're like, oh, well, this works for some person. I know that everybody's got to say that, right? That different people, it's like, no, we're the same species, actually. And I get people are in different states of health, but if you take a perfectly healthy human, right, and another perfectly healthy human, outside of genetic differences that they blame everything on genetics. They make it sound like we're all wildly different species. Like that guy, you know what I'm saying? Unless you have like a genetic deficiency that's obvious and you've been diagnosed with it, it's like a big thing. You know what I mean? No, we're all the same species. It's going to be the same for everybody. But like people are in different states of like health, I guess, and different issues and all of that. Speaking of, okay, one thing I always warn people when I talk to them about starting carnivore is the raging diarrhea for like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. Like that is a thing. That's a thing. So, and it was for me in particular because I had no gallbladder. So I can't really eat large meals. I had to learn how to, I can now, because what happens is that your body starts making more bile as it's needed. But it's carbohydrates that definitely kills your gallbladder, because your gallbladder is not used. It concentrates the bile, and if it's never let out, because you never eat fat, like back when it was a standard American diet, it was mostly carbs and just junk. I know that's why my gallbladder went, because I knew what I used to eat. I did not eat tons of like fatty meat. I wasn't eating that, and my gallbladder went. So that right there shows you, well, my diet was primarily this, and gallbladder went kaput. I didn't have the gallbladder's going to die gene at whatever age I was. I mean, that's not a thing. You know what I mean? So it's nutrition, though, is a joke. It is a joke. And then I'll also hear people talk about, oh, well, they say, they? You mean the they that told you need to eat how many hundreds of grams of carbohydrates a day and told you flour's like a good thing, and you're not poisoning everything with your bromine? Flour's brominated. It that's nasty bad, like nasty, nasty bad. It's like that's really bad. So, I mean, these are the same people. So we've got to break free from the they. We got to break free from they, you know what I mean? Because they don't know what they're talking about. Because especially when they in nutrition, this is beyond ludicrous. It just really is. But it goes back to, I don't know. It's like what do you call them? Stockholm syndrome, kind of like you're just used to being browbeaten and you're used to the party line, of whatever is, meat's evil and all that kind of stuff. But I am really scared. I'm ranting a lot, but it's like I'm really, really afraid of becoming that bird that they're going to take a shot at, because evolving into that bigger movement, because you already have, there's a science, term loosely, scientist or whatever he was, and I only caught it in passing, but there's someone who went on, I don't know if it was a TED talk, but it's on the internet. I'm sure if you type it in, you can figure out who he is, because he's videotaped, like he's taped saying it, is that he wanted to mess up the meat supply so that basically you'd have an allergic reaction and nobody could eat it, because he wants people to stop eating meat. And you can verify that on, if you Google it. I forgot his name. I don't remember his name, but there's already people saying maybe we can taint the meat. There's all kind of things you could do, like I don't know what they could do or if they could do it. I don't know the capabilities. But the fact that people are saying that and they've got a platform to say that, because eating meat is evil and it's causing the environment to whatever, you know what I mean? And none of that, again, you look at science and you look at a lot of the things that are passed off as science nowadays, it's not, because science works in the same way it always has. It's like you hypothesize, you prove, you go through rigor, and you always know I could be wrong the entire time. When you're trying to prove something, you always know, because I've done R&D and for a significant amount in my past, and every R&D project we do, we have no idea if it's going to work. And you're not a failure if it doesn't, because you can't will it to work, but you only know it doesn't work if you do the experiment and you find out it doesn't work. So, that's that's all you can do. But the nutritionists are hilarious. That's not really, but
Yeah, it's like we're in a crazy movie.
And we're all looking around, and like, why this is so simple. It's like, and it's facts. It's not opinions. It's like a lot of this, you know what I mean? There's opinions on, I don't know. I don't understand how you can say, like, here's two sentences, all right, and they're true, like, because I've looked them up. I've looked up the Brussels sprouts, okay, and I don't know how many toxins are in it exactly. I think it was 130 something. There are that many toxins, meaning it's toxic, meaning don't touch it, right? And then that, but it's not true to say it's bad for you. And then when you're like, well, what is good about it? And you look at the bioavailability of the vitamins, and the fact that, fiber is like a Brillo pad going through your intestines. And everybody's like, oh, but they say you got to have fiber. Well, let's look at how that kind of came about. I guess everybody's constipated. Back in the dude who wrote the fiber myth, I think it was, everybody's constipated. I wonder why. Oh, that's right. They're eating crap. So they're eating all this crap and junk, and they're constipated. Instead of going, I wonder what they're eating. I wonder why everybody's constipated. Instead of that, the dude goes to wherever he went, and he saw people at this tribe like crapping like buffalo, and they're like, oh, they eat this thing, and it must be, yeah, fiber will get all that out, but why did you need the fiber in the first place? And that was in I guess the 90s, that guy wrote that, and it went viral or whatever, and it's just like now it's the thing. But if you look at the people who have colostomy bags and the people who have IBS, and what you hear is a common theme, and again, I don't have stats on it, but you hear a common theme of Well, my doctor says to eat this diet, and they get sicker and sicker and sicker. And we've got to, at some point, believe our own lying eyes, right? So it's like, oh, we don't. How can, if you change 20 years of back pain is gone, your arthritis is gone, your heartburn is gone, the weird IT band crap is gone, all of this stuff is gone. You were miserable, you lose the weight. If someone can talk you into believing that you're killing yourself, you'll fall for anything. I mean, that's just the bottom line, because there are things that are true in this world that are not object. It's not like, oh, it's kind of true or maybe or whatever. There are things that are true, and I think in the carnivore community, if we just hold on to the things that are true, and again, you can't be perfect. I know there's a lot of carnivores who's like, you got to eat raw meat, and it's like, no, I'm not going to eat raw meat. It's like you've heard people, and they go off the deep end if they know you drink coffee. It's like, this is a journey that you go through. It's like, I never thought I'd give up heavy cream. Man, I love that stuff, but I did. You know what I mean? And over time, your body kind of changes and adapts, and it becomes more healthy. And you'd be surprised. Like, I imagine I will 100% give up coffee one day. It's just not yet, because you can't put yourself in a position so that you're going to fail. And even on keto, like when I was keto, it's like I had to, I knew what I could handle and what I can't. You can't just say, because I'm going to do it. It's like, I'm going to do this or that. You can't put yourself in a position where you're going to fail. You have to slowly kind of build up to it. But
Yeah.
it's been a life changer for sure.
Yeah. And that's very well said. At some point, we have to kind of just say to ourselves,
Hmm.
well, what's actually working?
Yeah.
I feel so
Yeah.
good when I'm eating just meat or just meat and
Hmm.
eggs.
Yeah.
And as soon as I start eating the pizza, I feel bad again.
I
As
feel
soon as I
horrible.
start eating
Yeah.
the vegetables, I feel horrible.
Yeah.
There's something there, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing about vegetables, people eating vegetables, even people who eat some vegetables, like I told I have dumped oxalates. Just yeah, I'm jumping around, but I have dumped oxalates before, and that is not pleasant. But again, that's not because you're carnivore. I mean, you see it because you're carnivore, because of the way that I guess, and again, I don't have scientific data to prove any of this, but I think Sally Norton is pretty on point with this. I think the way that your body works, and again, like if you're excreting the powder through your skin, you can test that. I mean, I've got I don't know how small it is, or if you can see it under a microscope or something, but like I have a microscope at home that I can look at things. It's like, but that'd be interesting. Like if you can even see it, and I would imagine you can, because they form kidney stones and other things, but they're in your joints, and synovial fluid is what, basically she's saying that, the buildup over years, it might take 10 years to get rid of all the oxalates because we eat so much of it, and like my sister, had issues with her kidneys and stuff, and her doctor took her off oxalates. And it's like, okay, oxalates cause problems. Why is anybody eating them? Why are you not telling everybody to stop eating them? Like, why are you just telling people with kidney issues stop eating them? Like, they're bad. And one of the most horrifying things I saw early on is like baby food that was sold that had was spinach in it. And I'm like, you know, don't you know what I mean? It's like you're looking at stuff, and plus all that stuff has chemicals in it and everything. But if you look at some of the things that you're told from the medical community, you know that it's egregious, because, like, they tell women that breastfeeding is not, you need supplements when you breastfeed. Okay, so that's like a heinous, crazy thing. You know what I mean? Like, you need a supplement. I believe it's for vitamin D, if I remember correctly. It's one of the major things that you need, and I might be wrong about that, but something that you need to supplement. And breast milk is the most nutritious, natural thing for your child. My kids, I put it in a freezer. I pumped after they were done breastfeeding, and I kept it for them to eat, because they get all your antibodies, and they get all of it's very oily. A lot of people don't know that, but breast milk is extremely oily. It's very, very nutritious for your child. And I look at formula and just, I really want to cry. I really, really want to cry. I mean, because again, that goes back to, I mean, there's pharmaceuticals, there's baby formula. It's like it's horrifying what is actually in that. It's so artificial, and I don't know. It's just sad. It's really sad. But
Yeah. So I guess it's carnivore forever for you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I made a mistake a couple of times. I guess not much. It was very little, and I felt it, and you feel it hard, you know. And like I said, I have oxalate dumped before, but that's not really brought on by eating. That's just eventually it, you know, depending on how many oxalates you drank in the past or eaten, drank in the past. If you have a large buildup, you're going to dump at some point. And I felt terrible for 2 days, and I mean achy and everything, but I could tell that's what it was. It was just based on everything I've heard that people when they go through it, you know, and it had to be what it was because it didn't make any sense otherwise. You know what I mean? And again, I don't have evidence of that, but there's so many people who are talking about it. It is a thing that can happen, but again, it's a good thing you're getting rid of it. It's getting out of your system, you know, and there are ways to mitigate that. So if you drink, like occasionally I do still drink small amount. I drink diluted tea here and there. So coffee and tea is really the only other things I do, but diluted tea, if like she was saying, if you're having a really hard time and you're dumping a lot, you can eat a small or drink a small amount of tea, and it'll help mitigate the, you know, feeling bad. And you're not putting a ton of oxalates in, but you're still dumping it, but it just makes it easier to deal with. So that tended to help. But I mean, if you look at food though, oxalates are in everything. You know, it's just really it's really weird. And the more I find out, I mean, the more I feel like I need to live in a bubble or something, or you know, it's like I got to grow my own cows and stuff, and because everything is so corrupted, like, you know, our air, our water, our you know, the food. You can't go to the grocery store, and now it's like if you try to just get the purest stuff that you can in your body, like I was talking about, I was eating the steaks, but they're not. They don't taste, you know, if I eat the grass fed, it tastes a little gamey. It's like I prefer the other ones, you know, so I need to get a taste for grass fed meat to get, you know, get a better quality of meat, you know, as far as my food source. But I mean, you start finding out everything and you're just like, okay, I'm going to live in a bubble with another cow. Like me and the cow are going to live in a giant bubble where we get our air purified and then, you know, whatever. So you can't be, I mean, it's just everywhere you turn. It doesn't matter where you look. It doesn't matter what you're looking at. It's just, it's corrupted. Everything's corrupted. So I think this is great, though. I'm really happy about so many people getting on, you know, getting on board to this. And they can't ignore this forever, you know. And I see people at work, and it, again, this is really good for me because, oh my God, I go off. It's like at work, you know, somebody be talking about some kind of medical problem, you know, I'm like, you know, you know what to get rid of that, you know, and they just look at me like I'm crazy. And then they look at like, it's just such an addiction food because they look at me like, oh, I can't imagine not having, you know, my chocolate and not having my, also high in oxalates, by the way, but it's like not having my chocolate or my this or my that. And I have fond memories of eating things like that, but that's all they are. It's like nostalgia, you know. I remembered it was great, but I'm like, ooh, you know what I mean? It's like if I tried to do it, it's like I know it's going to hurt me, and it's like it's a second's worth of pleasure that's gone, and then all the damage starts. You know, the weight, the pain, the everything else that happens. So I don't know. It's like, but people, man, you talk about a strong addiction. I think food, a lot of this food is worse than alcohol ever thought about being. You know, it's a lot worse than that.
Yeah, and the whole time, I mean, those food scientists are not there
Mm-hmm.
to work out how to get more nutrition in there for us. It's
Mm-mm.
to make
Nope.
it more and more addictive, right?
Yes, and that's why they try to reach the bliss point and stuff, and you have people tasting stuff, and like again, that mix of fat and not good fat, like seed oils and sugar, refined sugar, and uh, other refined carbs and flour and stuff like that. That's what they do to make it addictive. Because I understand it completely because there were things like that I was just highly addicted to, like these hush puppies that were like completely artificial and they were fried and God knows what, you know. And it's just I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to get up. Like I wouldn't want to go somewhere. It's like I would have gone out and made a special trip to get certain types of food. You go out of your way to get this stuff because you are an addict. You know what I mean? Anything else you're addicted to, it's like you go to AA or you do something about it. They don't. It's food is just it's an addiction that everybody takes part in, and it's never addressed. And it's making people so sick. And seed oils are nasty though. I can eat if I accidentally eat something with a little bit of seed oil in it. I know it. I feel very sick afterwards. So it's very disgusting. And I mean, if you look at the history of where they came from, it'll really gross you out, and the sugar industry and everything, all of that. I mean, it's been going on forever. This is nothing new. Like people think all of a sudden all this. No, if you look at graphs, you can graph out when the food was basically TV dinners and Crisco and all of these things first came on the market. You can graph alongside obesity and heart attacks, and it goes like it's they're together. It graphs together. I mean, you didn't have all of these problems, these diseases of the West, before. And the chemicals that they put in the food here, they don't care. They do not care what they feed the Americans. They do not care. If you go to Canada or you go to Europe, a lot of the really, really harmful ones, they don't use those. So there's stuff that's outlawed. Like you can't put some of this really dangerous stuff in the food. But here, anything goes. If you can chew it, it's like you can chew it or drink it. It's like we're good, And anal seepage. That's all I'm gonna say. That's disgusting. But they had a warning on a bag of potato chips that said anal, and I'm like, that's it. I don't know what happened to that. They might still be selling it. I would not be surprised in the least bit if they're still selling that. But that was the big thing. I remember the commercials. It's like, oh, you can't digest it. We can't digest it. We're not going to get fat because fat makes you fat. That's right. So, but
It's
that's funny.
literally, wee, because it's going straight through you, right?
That's right. You'd be walking around. It's like I left a trail, but anyway. So it's nasty. But I mean that the fact that people would put that in their mouth, and that one I didn't go for. Even back when I was fooled into doing a lot of this fad diet stuff, and fat is bad for you, and everybody's eating chicken. Chicken's gross. I'm sorry. Sometimes I would put like hot Tabasco, like wings or something like that. I enjoyed wings or whatever. But after you go carnivore and you're mainly beef or ruminant animals and stuff, it's like chicken is just the most useless thing on the planet. It's like, oh my God, like what? There's nothing because it has no fat in it. There's no fat. Like if you're eating the, chicken breast, and I know a lot of people like it or whatever, but it's like blue. After you start getting what you need, your body starts getting the fats and everything that you need. It's like when you eat chicken, it's like I feel like I'm eating cardboard, even if it's like juicy and stuff. It's like, that's another difference. I used to eat chicken all the time, but now I'm like, no. Pork is another one that because of the ruminant animals having the 2 chambers and all that kind of stuff where it filters out the toxins. And that's why it's something like, that's the reason Michaela Peterson eats it, because she's very sensitive to the smallest thing. If I was to eat pork, when I eat pork or try to eat pork, now I can eat some bacon, but I don't eat much of it because of the way it's processed. It's just hard to get really straight up bacon. That would be much better. But like I'll eat some because I love it. I think it's good. But I notice it. I feel it. Later I just feel icky. When I eat bacon. But I do eat it sometimes. But eggs, I love the eggs. It's just not as and eating more times a day just makes me feel it. I don't need to eat, and that's another thing. Like I'm religious about. I'm asking myself a question. I'm going to interrogate myself when I go, hey, I'm thinking about eating something. I'm like, do you want to stick something in your mouth or are you hungry? And honestly, to be truly hungry, it probably would take me 2 days to be truly hungry. But I really like that steak at night, so I eat once a day because I really enjoy the meat. So,
Yeah. So Liz, if people want to get in touch with you, do you have any social media or any way of getting in contact?
right now, I'm thinking about launching a platform because I was a part of the things I do, like in my occupation, like what I've done for years is I train people and I teach classes and stuff, just work stuff or whatever. And so I was thinking I really need to try to the scientific end of it and the historical end of like food and nutrition and stuff. We need more voices. So I'm thinking about or working on launching a YouTube channel around that probably. It's early phase though, but I have an email address. It's eamorn21@gmail.com. So that if anybody, I mean, because a lot of times I'll like think of people, I'll see people in interviews. And I'm like, oh, I want to ask them a question, So I can be contacted at that email address though.
No worries. Well, I'll link to your email address below, but if you do get something else started with
Mhm.
whether it's a YouTube channel or some other way of educating, please let me know and I'll
Okay,
also include that.
I will do.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, Liz. I really
Well, thanks for
appreciate your
having
time.
me. It's really, really nice to be able to talk to people that don't look at you like you're nuts.